I do want to preface this video with the fact that I was confusing Peter and Paul's names throughout all of this. I was calling one of them the other for the first 20 minutes of this video. So, just a warning, but don't put two very common names that start with a P in a movie and expect me to not screw it up. And now, funny games.
Do you think it's enough? I mean, you want a real ending, right? With plausible plot development, don't you?
Boom! Surprise! I mean, I said on the community tab I'm probably not doing something tonight, but knowing me, a random movie will come out. And here we are. So, Funny Games from 2007. And I'm not doing a video on the original. This is a shot-for-shot remake of, I always forget his name, Haneke or something, Haneke? I'm not even going to attempt it. But this is a shot-for-shot remake of his original from 97, except it's in English. And the original is very good. It's just, this is one of the rare cases where I vastly prefer the remake. A lot of it has to do with the cast. We have Naomi Watts in here, who I adore, Tim Roth, who I also adore, and Michael Pitt is just, he is the standout of this movie. He does such a great job playing just this charming psychopath. If anyone hasn't seen this movie or the original, I said in like the Strangers video that that's pretty much like the home invasion film. When you think of home invasion movies, The Strangers is usually one of the first, if not the first, to come to most people's minds. This is another one for me. Like, pretty much right there with The Strangers. The only reason I don't bring this one up right away and always cite The Strangers is because it's much more realistic. It's a lot more terrifying. There's a lot of humor throughout this, dark humor. And then there's breaking the fourth wall in that infamous scene with the remote control, which we'll get to. But I love everything about this movie. I was looking for something to watch. And it wasn't even, it's another rare case that it wasn't on a streaming service. I was browsing through Tubi and looking around on Amazon. I'm like, I don't know what I want to watch. And for some reason, Funny Games just went into my brain. And I said, that's it. That's the movie. Like, that's what we're watching and talking about. But yeah, for those of you who haven't seen it, the only really plot you need is Naomi Watts and Tim Roth are married and they have a young son. And they end up going to their vacation home, which is right on like a lake or some body of water. It's beautiful. And by the way, they shot all the external shots on Long Island, where I'm from. So thanks for repping Long Island, Funny Games. And these two guys end up coming to the house and torturing them and fucking with them in every way imaginable. So that's the only plot you really need going into this. There are definitely some weird turns and twists throughout this, but I don't really know anybody or met anyone or talked to anyone in my life who doesn't like, at least, if not love, Funny Games. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Before we jump into it, this is an example of a shot-for-shot remake done extremely well. It made me think of Psycho and the remake from 98 and how that shot-for-shot remake is just atrocious in every way. So this is how you do it. I forgot who directed the Psycho remake. I don't know if he's still in the film industry anymore after that flop, but he could take a lesson from the director here of both Funny Games. Now let's jump into the movie. Actually, before we jump into the I'm just fucking around. So just the opening scene here is fantastic. And this is how, I mean, we have credits in the very beginning, but this is how you put a title card up on your movie. We have the Farbers, Anne, Naomi Watts, Tim Roth, her husband, George, and their son, Georgie. Well, I'm not sure how old he is. He looks like 10, around there, give or take. And great top-down shots of them driving to their vacation home. George has opera music on, and they're listening to that. Then Anne goes to change the music, puts on some other type of music. And then you just get hit with a blast of the most insane death metal with like, it's not even lyrics, it's just someone squealing on top of it. And the title card comes up, Funny Games. And actually, I never noticed that it says Funny Games US right underneath Funny Games. And it just says Funny Games in the original, of course. But never noticed it said US under it. But the title card comes up right when the death metal kicks in. And this is where a lot of the meta stuff starts with this movie and breaking the fourth wall, because you know there's no way this family threw on this music. It's there just for the movie. But it's an example of doing that and putting something in a movie just for the movie and not for the characters or the story or anything, where I think it's just excellent. That is a memorable title card. So yeah, they're heading to their vacation home. They stop because there's some neighbors that they know and they're supposed to come over the next day, which is a nice thing to throw in early on there, that the neighbors, friends, whatever, are expected to come at some point, because you know, and as things unfold in this movie and the things that Peter and Paul, again, no Mary, at this point in the channel, you have to really follow every piece of content, because at this point there are so many running gags and stuff like that most people will never understand or get. But as it unfolds and you see the stuff Peter and Paul do to them, they throw that in your head very early on, that they might have somebody come and save them, or at least try to help them. Also, this house that they're at and all the neighboring houses, and the cinematography is just beautiful in this movie. A lot of white, which I don't know if that's supposed to be symbolic of something, but when they went through the gates that leads to their house, I'm telling you, it looks like, and because of the opera music that's back on, it looks like they're entering the pearly gates. And then it's closing back up. I mean, they're about to find out this is nowhere near heaven. And I love how they spend the first 10, 15 minutes really making you see how nice and close of a family this is. It really does a good job at making you believe this is a family. They show Georgie and George working on a boat and stuff by the water, and the thing with their dog Lucky and how much attention they pay to him. It's unfortunate what happens to him later, but you really feel for these characters and you get invested in them very early on. So they do a very good job at that, and it just makes everything that happens to them more and more unsettling, because you want these people to survive. So I praised Pitt's performance in this, but I forget the actor who plays Paul. He does such a great job too. The whole scene when he comes over and he asks for the eggs, and he says that the Thompsons, whatever, the neighbors, asked him to come over because she ran out of eggs, they're making food. And of course, she's nice at first. She goes to grab the eggs. She gives him, I don't know, 4 or something like that. And then as he's walking out, and he's so kind and stuff, but first of all, I've seen enough horror movies. Why the fuck are these people wearing gloves when it looks like it's 80 degrees out? I'd be suspicious immediately. Anybody who's wearing gloves in the summertime, unless you're on the golf course or something similar where it's needed or it's used commonly. Yeah, they have a golf club that comes into play later, but they're not on a fucking golf course. So I would instantly have my guard up. But he's so charming and clumsy at the same time. He walks out and he drops the eggs on purpose on the ground.
So, you're sure they're okay like this?
Yeah, it's okay. No problem. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Oh, please say hello to Reeve. Tell her we're looking forward to the game tomorrow.
I'll tell her. Thanks again.
And thanks to Fred and your friends for helping us. What happened? It's not a disaster.
And then he ends up accidentally knocking her cell phone into the sink, taking the phone out of play, which smart move.
You'll still have 4 left. It's a box of the dozen, isn't it? Or am I mistaken?
No, you're not mistaken.
And then he ends up leaving, and the dog attacks him. Not attacks him, but scares him. And he drops the eggs again. And at this point, she's like, had enough. Like, get out of here, please. And then Peter shows up. And we just get more amazing performances, amazing dialogue. Also, I don't know what this says about me, but if some strange person wearing gloves came up and asked for eggs, I just would say, sorry, I don't have any eggs. And I would have them go on their merry old way. I'm not letting this fucking creep in my house. I love when Peter sees the golf clubs after the encounter with the dog by Paul, which caused him to drop the eggs. And just the way he's thinking, that like, oh, he says, I totally forgot about the dog. It's my fault. I'm so sorry. Then he notices the golf club.
That's a really great set of clubs. It's Callaway, right? Awesome. These are wonderful. May I?
You know he saw that golf club and said, I'm going to fucking kill that dog. And let me say this, too. For a dog named Lucky, this dog brings this family the worst luck imaginable. And yeah, there's a lot of tension in this scene when George comes home. And Peter and Paul are both like, oh, well, thank God you're here, Mr. Farber. Like, we're just trying to sort out a misunderstanding. And the way Naomi Watts gets so frustrated and pissed off with them because they ask again for the last 4 eggs that she has after he dropped them twice. And she's at the point when she's just like, get out. Like, please, I'm asking you nicely, can you leave my house? And they're not leaving. So George comes, and then she's basically getting gaslit by all of them. Like, he wants to hear exactly what happened. And she's just saying, could you please just throw them out? Like, maybe I have my reasons. I want them gone. She ends up saying, do whatever you want. Walks away. So it's just George, Peter, and Paul. And I love how Peter starts getting more pissed off and starts dropping his fake facade of being this most charming, politeful person ever. When George says, I still don't know what's going on. And he says he dropped the eggs. We just want more eggs. Like, what's so difficult to understand? And then golf club comes into play, and they end up hitting George with it, and he hits the ground. Georgie, the son, comes to try to help him, and they both drag him off. What happens to this family really blows in this movie. Like, it's a depressing film by the end of it. And then just the way they keep fucking with them. And that's why this movie's called Funny Games. It's all a game to these people. After he hits George with the golf club, and he's in pain, he's injured, he still plays the charming psychopath, oh, I'm the nicest person ever, and says, listen, you should sit down. Like, I'm sorry, but, you know, you kind of caused this. You came at me. And starts saying, let Paul look at your leg. He used to be an EMT or some shit he makes up. The way that they keep trying to say, like, let him help you, and they have no intention of doing anything but murdering this family. It's so well written, and it's so witty with the dialogue. I love how he pulls out the golf ball and says, what is this? And they're not putting any of this together. And so he starts explaining and asking Paul for the answers, and saying, because you didn't hit it. And then that's how we find out Lucky, the dog, was killed by Peter with the golf club. And cool shots and stuff. I like how it's shot from far away when Anne is taken out to the car, and he's doing the whole, you know, warmer, cold. And then she gets to the car trunk and opens it, and the dog's body falls out. If you like dogs, this movie ain't for you. And that's when we also see some more breaking the fourth wall. During the hot and cold game he plays with her to find the dog's body.
Warmer. Cold.
And continues the game. I love all the breaking the fourth wall stuff in this movie, and that's another rare thing, which I usually hate that in movies when they break the fourth wall. Here it just plays so well into the film itself. I don't know, it makes me laugh and it makes me giddy every time something happens like that. Like a smirk from him looking at the camera. And then the ridiculous shit later, even though it is so out there and you never see it coming, it still has so much charm to it. It's original. Like, I don't think I've ever seen something like that scene in another movie. Might have been mistaken earlier. I know they talked to somebody on their way to the house. When I was saying that it's cool they put it early in the movie, they also say it here. So this might have been what I was thinking of. When another family and friends of theirs that lives on the other side of the lake ends up taking their boat and coming towards the property. And Peter and Anne are outside, and he says to her, like, we're thinking the same thing. Like, you better play it cool and pretend that nothing is wrong, which I have an issue with that. You got 3 people on this boat? I would have just started screaming, this guy's trying to kill us. And, I mean, yeah, maybe he would have killed you first, but at least you'd have multiple witnesses. If something's going on, the police could be called or anything like that. Yeah, you have the husband inside and he's injured with his leg, but he could still beat the fuck at that pudgy Paul. Come on. Anybody looks like can kick that guy's ass. You just throw some fucking eggs at his face and you're good. And Georgie the kid, he could run. So he can get away. So, I mean, you might be taking a bullet for your family, but isn't that what you're supposed to do for your family? But at least you'd get the attention of the people across the lake, and they would know something's going on. But whatever. It's still a good scene. And she plays it cool. And I love how Peter asks them and says, oh, you live across the lake, the one with the red dock. Like he's already planning for their next kill and to do this again, and that they're going to go to that family's house. Yeah, so I've definitely been confusing the names. Like throughout all of this so far. Paul is Michael Pitt. Peter is the pudgy one. And he calls him Tom for some reason. Again, Peter, Paul, I confused this in the video last night. I don't know what it is with those names. Then we get a degrading scene when they put the pillowcase over the son's head and they're torturing George until Anne strips down to, she has her underwear and stuff. Peter, now I'm going to keep on confusing them, but it is Peter. Paul's making fun of Peter for being fat. And then they have her stripped down, and he starts pointing out, see, there's no fat there, no jelly rolls or anything. Just all these things that are just so degrading and humiliating to this family. And they're still bouncing back between we're the kindest people in the world and psychopaths. And then Georgie, the kid, ends up escaping. But he runs to, I think it's the Thompsons, right? Fred's house, they say. The people who they've been lying about this entire time, saying sent them over. And he finds their dead bodies. So, obviously, they killed these people. And like I said, the people with the red dock, they're next on the hit list. Man, and then it's gut-punching when Paul goes into the kitchen for food. And then you hear the gunshot. And he walks into the living room, and there's blood all over the TV that Peter's still sitting there watching, but he ended up shooting the son, Georgie, because he tried to run. Oh, God, I can't imagine. And then they fuck with them even more so. The parents now that are still alive, but are not in great shape, and they leave. And they say, like, all right, thanks. Like, take care, everybody. Like, that's how they leave this house. Just to give them some type of hope that maybe they're done, they're fleeing because they've already killed somebody. They don't know they killed the neighbors. Only Georgie saw that. But the way they leave briefly is absolutely hysterical. So Anne and George, they're obviously a mess after the death of their son. They don't even seem like they want to go on anymore, especially George. But the will to live kicks in. Smart how he takes the hairdryer and starts, blowing it on the cell phone that Peter dropped in the sink on purpose earlier. And she tries escaping to find help, and she doesn't, and they capture her again. And then we get the famous scene in this movie. I guess it's the one that's most out there, the one we were talking about earlier. They start taunting them again, and then they say that Anne gets to choose how they kill George.
But also, and I'm sure this is going to interest you even more, with which device?
And before they can enact this plan, Anne grabs the shotgun off the table and shoots Peter, and he flies against the wall. That looks cool.
Look out!
And then Paul just says, no, fuck, where's the remote? And he finds the TV remote, and he hits rewind, and then everything reverses and goes backwards in time to before she grabs the shotgun. And then he's able to stop her on this second attempt.
Where's the remote control? Where's the fucking remote control? Okay, that was the test run. Now we're gonna go for the Olympic gold. You shouldn't have done that, Anne.
None of it makes sense. It's all just for the movie. But again, like, it works so well for this film. One thing, the probably only little criticism I can give this movie is it's a tad long. It's an hour and 50 minutes. They could have taken out maybe 10 minutes of this movie, 15 tops. And I think it would have, I don't know, played out much better with a little less downtime. So they end up shooting George dead. And then they take Anne onto the boat. And she's bound and gagged and everything. And Paul just pushes her over the side so casually, like he just threw a candy bar wrapper into the water. And she drowns and dies. And then he stops at, it is the Thompsons, the one with the red dock. Stops at the house, knocks on the door, and ends up asking Miss Thompson for some eggs. And then again, breaking the fourth wall, looks at the camera, and the death metal comes in with the title card again, credits. This is such a fun movie. I haven't seen this in a while, but this was, as soon as I thought of this movie and it popped into my head for some reason, I said, that's it. That's the movie I'm watching. Always a blast watching this. I don't remember the last time I saw the original. I think I only saw it once. And it was after I saw this remake. And it made me interested. Let me see the original. Quick thing on the original, it's great. Like, everything that I mentioned that's great in this movie is great in the original. The only reason I prefer this movie is I don't have to read subtitles, and Naomi Watts, Tim Roth, Michael Pitt, just their performances make this whole movie, especially Michael Pitt. I mean, he is the standout of this film. And when you're in a movie with Naomi Watts and Tim Roth, and you have like the standout performance, you know you got goddamn talent. So that's Funny Games from 2007. Tomorrow I'm going to try to have out a video on Lucio Fulci's 1971 Giallo, A Lizard in a Woman's Skin, sticking to the 71 Giallo theme with Sergio Martino's Case of the Scorpion's Tail, which I put out a video early this morning on that. If you're a Giallo fan or a Martino fan, check it out. I had a great time watching that movie. But alright guys, I hope everyone's having a good morning, afternoon, or night. I will talk to you soon. Take care, everybody.